Hello and welcome to another episode of the Don't Give a Ruck podcast, and today is a very special one of the greatest rugby players of all time in my opinion and many pundits' opinions. 101 caps, over 60 tries for his country, and the third Australian to be on the Don't Give a Ruck podcast. I'd like to give a warm Australian welcome to Mr. David Campese. David, how's it going?
I'm not too bad, thanks.
How is it in sunny Sydney?
It's a bit windy at the moment, but mate, not too bad actually. It's been pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty. You guys back into lockdown now, eh?
Oh yeah, it's awful. Well, because I'm from Wales, so there was.
Sure, you could have fooled me.
I haven't got a fake tan like all the other Welsh boys, so that's one thing that counts.
True.
But how have you and the family been coping? How was it like over in Australia?
Yeah, mate, it's pretty good. The kids are at school. They were at home for a couple of probably about 6-7 weeks. Back at school, so they're just on holidays now. So yeah, mate, it's we're lucky to actually go into summer. And obviously, you know, it's not like your little towns and all that. Sydney's a big place. So there's been a lot of restrictions. Melbourne is a mess.
Yeah.
Thank God we don't live down there. The kids haven't been to school for months. But the problem is this has created other problems with obviously mental illness, a lot of suicide sort of things, like just all the normal things that people get checked up for, they're not because they're too scared.
Yeah.
So it's not good, mate, no.
But I think over here, I think the statistic is that I think there's on average 8 people a day is dying from COVID at the moment, and there's 128 people a week who are committing suicide. So you have to have that fine balance, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you got to do it, but it's just got to make people aware. You don't scare them. I mean, humans are easily scared, so it's not great, mate. But anyway.
Yeah, we digress. So how have you been keeping over the last few weeks? Have you been getting into any coaching or helping out?
Yeah, mate, I've got a couple of kids. I'm doing mentoring with a young guy from Randwick. It's been going on since about February, I think it is, once a week. I've got a couple of young kids. I'm doing probably now twice a week going into the off season. Yeah, so it's been busy, but not really busy because a lot of the sports at schools finished as well. The club system as well. So the clubs are just about finished. They finished last week, so yeah, it's been a very short season, but mate, you know, what can you really do? You know, there's not much. The government tells you to do something. We all. You know, we are supposed to be a liberal sort of country where, you know, the freedoms are important, but that's going to be taken away as well. So,
yeah. So, have you been watching much of the Super Rugby because it was the final last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did watch the final. It's I normally tape the games because I get a bit frustrated watching.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I think that you know, I think that we've still got a long way to go to improve. And you know, I just think that for some reason this generation, I don't know why, but when the game's not really going well, they don't know how to change it. If I go back and look at, for example, Ireland versus Japan last year in the World Cup, I was actually in Heathrow Airport watching, and for 60 minutes of the game, Ireland were losing. So for the next 20 minutes, what did they do? They did exactly the same as they did for the first 60 minutes because the coaches have got so much control that these poor people have got no idea how to change a game. You know, so it's very frustrating. But look, you know, we've got a new coach. You know, it'd be really good to get an Australian coach eventually. You know, because I don't know why Wales are the same. Why you guys keep on getting foreign coaches? You know, you play a style of rugby. You guys locally know the traditions and all that. A foreigner doesn't know that. But again, you know, it's all part of being professional.
I think the thing that killed Wales was obviously Gareth Jenkins took over in 2006, and he was supposed to be the right man for the job, and he was the right man for the job. He got Scarlets to I think it was 2 semi-finals from the European Cup and 6 quarterfinals, which no Welsh coach has done before or after him. And then all of a sudden, it sort of just blew up in our face. But I was talking to Nigel Davis, who was his assistant, a few weeks back, and like he was only given a year just before the World Cup, Whereas coaches now are given a lot more time. They're given straight after the World Cup. They get 4 years to prepare a side, don't they?
Yeah, look, it's well, Michael Checker came in the year before, so I think he was very lucky. And look, I just think it depends on what sort of talent you got as well. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter what sort of coach you are. If you haven't got the talent, mate, you can be the world's greatest coach. You know, but if you haven't got the players who are there to play the way you want to play, it is very frustrating. You know, even watching Wales in the World Cup last year against Australia, you're number 9, intercepted the ball 4 times. Now, after the first time, you'd say, guys, just be careful. After the second time, you say, no more long passes, but we kept on doing it because that's all they do. They just go through the motions. You know, yeah. So it's hard because I think we got 46 in the squad for the Wallabies, 46 players. I mean, you know, there was only 3 teams really in the competition, and the Force obviously didn't have any players. But I mean, it's bizarre that the coaches pick so many players, you know, for probably a squad of 30.
And have they named 16 uncapped players?
Yeah, there's a lot of uncapped players because obviously after the World Cup last year, a lot of guys have left. The Foldies, the Beals have left. Didn't get selected. All those guys have sort of moved on. You've got Hooper next year going to Japan for a sabbatical. You know, the poor guys. You know, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's strange because, you know, once upon a time, playing for your country was the ultimate for any player, but now it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw an interview you did. I think it was a podcast you did the other week, and I think you said something about the players after the game coming over and seeing the supporters, and they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, they I don't know why. That's too busy. You know, I mean, the kids are the future. You know, if you don't get the kid get to touch you or talk to someone like a test player, I've been doing a lot of coaching for the last almost 3 years now, and I did one up at Port Macquarie probably about a month ago, and I asked the kids after training. I said, I pointed to a kid, "What's your name?" He said, "Johnny." I said, "What position? Number 9. Who's your favourite player?" Haven't got one.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a Sunday morning, and I said, "Who watched the rugby last night?" Nobody watched it. So there's your problem, you know, and that's the thing is, you know, that no one seems to know who's playing. We're in a mess out here. We just had Qantas leave us. You know, we're in a bit of turmoil. But it's just like a player. I mean, a lot of people who've been there before in the boards now aren't accountable for anything. You know, they just get up and leave and move on, and the poor person comes in, is going to cop it. You know, I think society is like that in general now. Don't blame me. It wasn't my fault. You know, someone else, blame someone else. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about when you were a kid. Did you have any heroes when you were a kid? Because you grew up through rugby league, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I played league from 8 to 16, and coming from a very small town out down in Canberra, you know, it was rugby league with St George. There was guys like Graham Langlands. You probably never heard of these guys. Graham Langlands, Teddy Goodwin, Stevie Morris. They call him Slippery Morris. Then you look at Arthur Beetson's. There was a guy called Russell Fairfax. It was a bit before my time. Played for the Wallabies as well. So that was really the growing up in especially rugby league, rugby union. You know, not until I really started to play for the ACT. Watched a few test matches, and Mark Ellis I sort of liked the way he played, so that sort of started my rugby union sort of idol players, and then I got to play with them, so it was pretty quick. Yeah. And then obviously Jiffy, I don't know if I called him an idol or I'm trying to take my head off once. After he came back from rugby league in '96, he tried to knock my head off. But you know.
But didn't you play golf as well?
Yeah, I won a golf championship at 15. Yeah. Played second grade cricket. Yeah, I just love sport, you know, back in those days. So you're very fortunate in country areas that you can actually do that. You know, and there wasn't a lot of pressure from my parents as well because my dad was Italian, my mum was home with the other 3 kids, so it made no stress, no pressure.
And you said you love sport. What made you try your hand at rugby union? Did you just think it was going to be like league, or was there just an easy transition?
No, because at school, I went to a government school, and so in government school, rugby league, especially in the country, that's the number 1 sport. Rugby union's not even played. It's really private schools or public schools in Europe. And I played league until 16. Played a couple of years of rugby union. Our school sports teacher at the government school was a guy called Wayne Southwell, who played rugby union in Canberra. And we entered this team in this competition, and then we just got to learn to play the game. And then, when at 16, I decided to go over and try, a bit of rugby. So I went over there and played fourth grade in 1979, and then first grade 1980, Wallabies 82. So it was pretty quick.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, within 2 years, you were playing for the Australian under 21s. I believe you played a few tests against New Zealand and Fiji under 21.
Yeah.
Did you know how much of an impression you were making on Bob Dwyer at that time?
No, we never really met the guys. We were playing the curtain raise we played up in Ballymore was against Fiji. Australia played Scotland that day. And the week after we played the New Zealand 21s before Australia-Scotland second test. So we were the juniors, mate. Not many people come to watch us. They were there for the test match. So so it was quite good. It was just, I think sometimes there's a lot of luck involved. I think that tour in 82, 11 players from the previous year pulled out, so they had to pick some young guys. And I still think that those tours are the best tours to go on, those long tours, because you get a lot of young guys. You got a couple of test matches, and you got about 4 or 5 games leading into them as well. So it makes it the accommodations, and it gets the young guys a bit of exposure to very, very different rugby and a different style and a different level.
And of course, you scored in your first 2 test matches for Australia against New Zealand. Did you find it an easy transition stepping up to the international game?
Well, I think what really helped me, because I didn't really know a lot about rugby, I think it was, there was no sort of fear factor. There was fear, but not really like growing up through rugby all your life and going, oh my goodness, here we are, what am I going to do against the All Blacks? Where, I was just fortunate that I was probably one of the youngest in the sides. So a lot of older guys around, and I just sort of just stuck by and just listened and learnt, and just try to pick up hints as I went along.
And before the game, you were questioned on your opposite wing, Stu Wilson, and you famously said, Stu who? Did you genuinely not know who he was?
Yeah, well, that was at the airport, actually, I got off the plane. I said, what do you think about marking this great Stu Wilson? I said, Stu who? So, no, we're good mates now, thank God,
But what did you make of that first series, and what did you take out of it? Because for me, that's one of the best Aussie touring sides to tour New Zealand, because I think you scored over 300 odd points in 14 matches.
Yeah, I think it's a different style of rugby. I think that we learnt a lot from other countries. Bob Dwyer came in, and at Randwick, which is a famous club I played for eventually with the Ellers. I think 95% of the Wallabies back in those days came from Randwick, because that's the style of rugby that everybody wanted to play. If you realise you get to play that style, you've got a chance of playing for the national team. I just think it was very simple. It wasn't hard. Players' skill factor was a lot better. And I just think that we really enjoyed it, because you've got to realise in those days, we were amateur. So it was more about going to have fun. As soon as you get paid for something, mate, it's a different mindset. Players now aren't really the best in the world, because they don't go out and do extra work because they don't think they need it.
Yeah. So what was your opinion when the game turned professional in 95? Because obviously you were still playing. Yeah,
I got a contract for the Waratahs. I was the last player, and I said, mate, I don't really care what I get. I just want to play. But it was a very different attitude, and the players were very different. And you can see now that the players are huge. There's a lot more focus on the size, but even just little things like tackle techniques you see now are shocking. I can't remember over 15 years of international rugby, guys actually getting, high tackle or knocked out every game, and it just didn't happen, But now it's all around here. We saw Owen Farrell the other week, which is disgusting, and he only got 5 weeks. He should have got life. It was disgusting. The way he hit it, and he didn't care. But because he's the England captain, he's allowed to do what he wants, which is not great. He's a rugby league guy. He's always going to be a rugby league guy. And he's come over to our game, and he can do what he likes, and no one's prepared to have a go at him.
Yeah. And he's been getting away with it for years, haven't he?
Well, I mean, last year's World Cup was the reason why the referees clamped down is because of him.
Yeah.
You know, and the good thing about it in the final where he actually tried to tackle Colby and he actually had to use his arms, he couldn't tackle.
Yeah.
And Colby scored.
Exactly.
So that was the highlight of the World Cup.
We'll get on to that in a minute. But was the sort of first setback of your early Aussie career in '83 when you missed 4 kicks against the All Blacks, I believe, and you would have probably wanted to win the game. And Bob Dwyer's quote is saying, if you've kicked the first kick, you'll kick all day. But if you miss a few, then your head goes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, it was Sydney Crick Runner was, and I think we scored 2 tries to. I actually don't know if they scored a try the All Blacks. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I was a goal kicker, so I remember my first kick. I lined it up and I kicked it about 4 metres on the ground and just did one of those rolling kicks on the ground. You know, in front of 40,000 people. I'm going, okay, well, that's great. Oh, look, you know, I mean, it was just one of those things that happened. You know, as I said, if you're on your day, you're on your day. Sometimes you're not. You know, kickers are the same these days. But, yeah, look, you know, it was just something you learn in life. And, yeah, I learned very quickly.
Yeah. And after the eventful Bledisloe series of '84, you go on to tour the UK for the first time, I believe. That must have been some experience.
Yeah, look, it was. It was again, it was new for me because obviously this is where rugby really started, and you know, you had some great players in the England, the Welsh, the Irish, and the Scottish, and obviously coming to these fantastic ovals that were, you know, in history. With the Gareth Edwards, the Phil Bennett, JPR Williams, you know, Gerald Davies, and all these guys. So yeah, look, it was great. It was more of an education sort of tour because Bob Dwyer was into the arts, and we'd go to see Julie Andrew in concert, and I had no idea who she was. We'd go to Shakespeare's house. We'd do the sightseeing, and you know, for me, coming from where I came from, my background, this was amazing. You know. So yeah, look, it's sort of, I sort of realised this is a great opportunity to travel the world and learn a lot about the world.
Yeah.
And after that tour, I went straight back to Italy for 6 months, for every 6 months for 10 years. So yeah, it was a great opportunity to actually see the world. And yeah, look, the rugby was good as well. I always seemed to play well out there because there was never seemed to be any pressure.
Yeah.
You know, in Australia here, every time you do a mistake, they're in the paper after you. So it was quite good to go away, and obviously the more you win, the easier it is.
Yeah, and of course that was an 18-match tour, I believe, which you'll never see these days, will you?
Oh no, the players too hard. You know, they play one game a week. Too physical.
Well, I think you were quoted as saying that you always played your best rugby outside of Australia. Yep. Did you ever have any contact from teams in Britain to come along and have a so?
Yeah, I think my last tour was Nigel Ray wanted me to go to Saracens, and I met him at the airport. And I think I'm the only one who's ever said no to Nigel. And he's at the airport and he says, "Oh, mate, would you like to play?" And I thought about it. I said, "Listen, to tell you the truth, I can't see myself 3 o'clock in the afternoon standing on the wing, freezing my balls off and not catching the ball at all." So I said, "No, thanks."
Yeah. I think
after seeing Rory Underwood, marking Rory for years and seeing him out there, I said, "Mate, no, I just didn't." You want to be involved in the game. Yeah. Obviously, it's changed now because the ovals are better, you know, and it seems to be a more expansive game a bit. But you know, at those times in the mud and all that, I was getting a bit old as well, so I just sort of said no.
Yeah. Would you have gone if there was artificial pitches?
No. I think after '96, I was around since '82. You know.
Yeah.
It was great. I love rugby. I could have played on for, but I mean, there's got to be a time you got to say no, and that was the time. The money wasn't really the interest back then. You know, it was just about. I think I went back to Italy for 6 months to play as well. So, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't as much pressure as say in England.
Yeah, and of course that Grand Slam in '84 was a huge stepping stone, sort of building up to that '87 World Cup. Do you remember the buzz around the World Cup? Was it like it is today?
Very different, I think, because if it wasn't for Leo Williams and a couple of other major Executives Rugby Australia, the World Cup in Ixtahady, it wouldn't have taken place because the IRB didn't want it.
Yeah.
So you had to start somewhere. And, look, it was hard for us because to actually tour inside your own country for 5 weeks is not easy, because you can't, stuck in a hotel. At least if you go to Europe, or Rome, you've got places to see, the Colosseum, Circus Maximus, you've got all that sort of history. But in Australia, you've got a hotel room.
Yeah.
So it was very, very difficult to be a local team. Test matches are okay in general because in those days you get together 3 days before a test. And out you go, and the day after you go home and play club rugby. But then back in the World Cup, it was every day, So it did make a big difference. I think if the World Cup was played elsewhere, we probably would have done a lot better.
Yeah.
But again, in history, it shows that the French game was a very close game. But then going to Rotorua and losing to Wales the first time ever was very disappointing.
Yeah. Paul Thorburn on the touchline.
Yes, yeah. True.
You did say that was a disaster for both Australia and yourself. And did you go on to the World Cup with an injury?
Yeah, look, I had a stress fracture in my foot, and I had a bone scan. Some of the best doctors in Australia, and they said no, it's just wear and tear. Okay, so it was very difficult. After the World Cup, I went to see the Institute of Sport, and they said, "Oh no, it's wear and tear." Went back to club rugby, and Diane Long, who was the physio, said, "I think you should go and get an MRI." And when I got the MRI, there was the bone. The navicular bone had actually split in half.
Yeah.
So I was running around for bone, and all these experts said, "No, you'll be all right. Wear and tear." So I got a screw stuck in straight away. I missed the tour to Argentina, and never had another problem since.
Yeah, and after, I think your first game after that, one of your first games was against the All Blacks, and you come up against John Kirwin. And is it true that you lost some confidence after that game?
No, I wasn't confident. I just think that John was playing well, and I'm the kind of player that needs to get the ball as much as possible. And the Lions as well in 89, where I think in 3 test matches I only got the ball 3 times.
Yeah.
So it did make it very, very difficult to get involved. And the more you get the ball, if you hit the ball 20 times and make 3 mistakes, no one cares. But if you hit the ball 3 times and make 2 mistakes, everybody notices.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was sort of the biggest problem. Yeah. Oh, look, you got to go. You can't be the top of form like for 15 years. That's not easy. You got to go up and down. But look, it was parts of the learning process, and I think 88 and then 89 sort of helped in 91. So you got to take the good and the bad.
Yeah. I only asked that because I believe your mother sent you a poem.
Yes.
After one of the games, and you sort of read it before every single game that you played after that.
Yeah, it was called "Winners Take Chances," from Nancy Sims, and I used to read it in the corner while the forwards were smashing their heads against the walls. I'd read the poem in the corner before a game. Very different. Look it up, go, guys. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But it helps. But sometimes in life you do different things, and everyone's different. So it was good. I actually learned a lot, and then after that, you just go out there and just try your best.
Yeah. Well, it must have worked because you play the Barbarians, I believe, the year after, and you get a standing ovation in Cardiff. And then you're heading into the Lions tour, as we just said. Were you confident going into the Lions tour?
It's always hard because I think if you go on tour, as I said, the teams come together a lot better instead of playing at home all the time because you're familiar with certain things. The first test was okay. The second test was a bit of a bloodbath, and I think that was their tactics. They realised, well, if we can't beat you at rugby, we'll bash you. And they did. But as I said, in 3 tests, getting the ball 3 times, I hardly touched it.
Yeah.
And that's where your confidence goes. You need to get involved in the game as much as possible to give you the confidence. And look, it was just one of those things. But again, the funny thing is, when I threw that pass to Greg Martin, it didn't work that week. But the week after, I did exactly the same at work. So 7 days is a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've probably been asked this a million times, but I'm not going to ask you. But people go on about the Campos corner, and it's like, you had to try something. Do you know what I mean? You had to try, and and that's the sort of player you were. But what was the main reason why you lost the series? Was it the sort of intimidating tactics of the Lions at the time, or was it the targeting of you and Liner?
Yeah, well, I wasn't really targeted. I think Far Jones was targeted by Robert Jones, who tells a story about what the McGeechan was telling him every day. When you had a bunch of forwards, like, some massive forwards, Dooley, two policemen in the back row, you had Teague, you had some real thugs there. But that's rugby. That's how it was. If you look back now, would we have done things differently? Probably. But, we'd probably be a bit smarter with the ball. We did a lot of good things, but we just let ourselves down in a lot of little things. And that's what, it could be as small as the thing to lose you the game. But if you go back and say, well, if we did this properly, it was very disappointing. But, mate, as I said, you've got to learn from those mistakes. And 2 years later was the World Cup, so we learned very quickly.
Yeah. And is it true that nobody consoled you after the game in that third time?
No, not for about 10 minutes. So I saw Ye.
Or was that a bit?
Yeah, yeah, but my career's always been a bit like that. It's if you. I'm just trying to think. If it was 84 or 88, or it could have been 91. I was interviewed at Carter Farms Park actually, and one of the journalists, it was a lady from Australia, said, "So, do you think sometimes that when you play well, you're an Australian, and when you play bad, you're an Italian?" I said, "Yes."
What?
And I think that was the moment after Lions. You walk off, and some guy says, "Oh, you lost another test for Australia." You get in the dressing room, and you're there sitting there. No one comes to you for 10 minutes, and anyway, so I left. I was about to go to the reception with Yayan, and I said, "Mate, I've got to go." So I went home. Got pulled over by the police for speeding.
Oh my God!
And St Helens Rugby League rang up and offered me more money to play league. So it was a very interesting night.
Well, it would have been easy to go to league after that, because I'm not being funny. After everything you've done for Australia, because I believe in '89 you were named in the team of the decade.
Yeah, look, those sort of things weren't. It wasn't. You don't play. You just play and you go and have a good time and enjoy it. Yeah, look, I was never. I was offered to go to league. First couple of years. No, I never did. So I never wasn't really interested. Because I just love playing rugby and touring the world.
Yeah.
That was the best thing about it. So and it made the person I am. So, and obviously I met my wife Lara. I was on tour in South Africa. So, in rugby you get an opportunity to go anywhere, to see and see certain things and meet nice people. So yeah, so that's why I sort of stuck around and really enjoyed it, and had a lot of really good mates around the world. Jiffy, I don't know if I call Jiffy a mate, but yeah.
But yeah, what galvanised you then for that '91 World Cup? Because even looking back now, when I look back at videos now, is you did some things on the field then that we still haven't seen today.
I don't know. I as all my European tours, I played really well. 84, went over there in 86. We won. 88, and then 91. I've been to France 93. 88 was tough in England because we lost to England. And look, I just think it was they loved. There was more praise. It wasn't about let's watch it make mistakes.
Yeah.
I just felt at home because the journalists just wanted to know more about why you do things and why you do this and that. And obviously we had some great players as well. We had Liner, Far Jones. We had a lot of players that had been there on previous tours and all household names, but they were very, very experienced with a bunch of young guys. So we were probably the elders, statesmen, and we had to lead by example. So we sort of did that.
And is that where the goose step was shown on a world stage, or did you create that a few years earlier?
Nah, mate, I think I did it when I was 8 years old. And I don't know if you're on Instagram, but some guy in NFL did it the other day.
Did he?
Yeah, he's gone bonkers over it. And someone said, well, look, I was doing it since 8 years old. But yeah, look, I just think it's I just think it was very fortunate to play in that era. I think that was the best era of rugby. The laws have changed. It's really now it's about the sides. Eddie Jones, especially Eddie, wanted guys who are like 120 kilos and just run through brick walls, no skills. Yeah. And it destroys the game.
Yeah.
It's, and I'm just so lucky that Colby played well last year, and obviously Shane Williams when he was playing, that we need these small guys. Now they just want up giants.
Yeah.
The skill factor is probably not as good as they used to be, but they're not worried. They're just worried about big guys, and it's very hard to get tackled in the game of rugby now, and there's a brick wall, and one guy runs into four guys. 1v4 mathematically doesn't really work, does it?
Yeah.
But we still do that. And what happens? You run into a brick wall. You actually don't go. There's no forward momentum.
Yeah.
So the brick wall stays there, and you've got to go backwards to go forward. So whoever changed the laws was ridiculous. I didn't think about the future, and it's not very exciting. There's so many scrums. And obviously, with Owen Farrell coming in, these head-eye tackles, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
The amount of kids I've seen head-eye tackle and junior rugby is amazing.
Yeah.
My son's been knocked out twice this year because of that, and it's just ridiculous. It never used to happen, and yet they do something like that, and he gets 5 weeks. That's bizarre, mate. They're not for the benefit of the game doing things like that. It should be longer.
And if you don't mind me asking, how old is your son?
Jason's 13.
13. And did you sort of push him into rugby, or did you say, if you want to play, you can play. If you don't, I don't care?
Yeah, well, I'd rather him play cricket. He loves rugby. He's got his mates to play rugby. So, you can't stop kids. We try to get our kids to play whatever sport possible. So we just try and help as much as we can, as long as they're having a good time and they got with their mates. I mean, that's all that's really important. And if they get an opportunity to go on higher, it's up to them. It's very difficult to sort of tell your kids about certain things because they've got to find their own way. So it's look, we're lucky in the country. We got beautiful weather. We can go explore things outside, and you've got opportunity to play against some good teams, and it's in great weather. So
yeah. And back on the 91 World Cup, prior to the World Cup in 91, I think you put 63 points on Wales. You put 40 on England, and you come very close to beating the All Blacks in New Zealand 6-3, I believe it was.
Yeah, we beat them in Sydney 24. It was 24-12, 24-14 in Sydney. 2 weeks later, we lost 6-3. And it wasn't a great game, but it was quite ironic that after that game, I played the All Black 29 times. I think we won 9. After that game, I knew we'd beat them in the World Cup. I could just sense that they were just about over the hill. They're just not the same All Blacks.
Yeah.
And so off we went over the World Cup, and we played some great rugby for 40 minutes where I don't think they got it on the scoreboard. So,
Yeah, and before the World Cup, I think I don't know whether it was after or before the World Cup, you said you wanted to sort of leave a legacy, like a Barry John sort of figure, and you wanted to be remembered. Was that on your mind going into that World Cup?
No, look, I actually brought a book out, my autobiography, and I thought, well, there's been so much stress and pressure, but especially 89, 90. I said, this is probably my last year. So it was really about just going and just enjoying myself and, with the team and all that. So there was nothing sort of, I just went over there and played. We did as a team, said in a team, there's no individuals. If the guys don't do their job, I don't do my job. So everyone's got a role to do, and if you've got a team that can do that, it just makes our job a lot easier out wide.
And personally for you were named player of the tournament. You were named in the French magazine as the number 1 player in the world. You were named Australian Rugby Writers Player of the Year, and you were also the top try scorer as well. So it wasn't a bad World Cup, was it?
Yeah, no, it was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. And if you look back now, like it was, people don't see the hard work. They don't see the things that goes behind the performance. You just see the performance. You pay money, you come and watch the game. But you don't see the work and effort that goes in behind it to get to that performance. So that's where all the hard yards is done. And I just love training. I don't know why, but I did. So I just enjoyed pushing myself and make sure that every game was my best game.
And I think people forget as well the opposition that you had to face, because Argentina was a tough game, Samoa was a tough game, Ireland gave you one hell of a game in the quarterfinals as well, and obviously you had to play New Zealand and England in their backyard.
You didn't mention Wales.
Oh, well, I didn't want to mention that. Didn't want to mention that. You stopped us, didn't you?
Yeah, look, it was yeah, it was a different World Cup compared to now when you're playing like Georgia, Namibia.
Yeah.
We got to play Argentina on a Saturday in Llanelli. Pontypool, we played Samoa in the mud. Wales at Carter Farms Park. The week after we played Ireland, we played New Zealand, and we played England.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as an easy game. And in those days it was every 3 or 4 days. Now it's every week.
Yeah.
These teams. So I mean, I just, look, we had it was a good era. It was great rugby, and it was just great to be part of. A generation of rugby that a lot of people still remember.
And do you think now, with the Australian side, maybe, do you feel now that when they're told, oh yeah, you need a rest, you need to rest here, you need to rest there, do you think it's a mental thing then?
Look, I think that again, it's 24/7. These guys just don't rest. It's 24/7 rugby. It's difficult because the generations have changed. I mean, you have a look at the mannerism of some of these players as well. The way they carry on and off the field, and I just think it's totally different. The respect for the game is very different. The knowledge of the game. I don't know if you speak to some players, say in Wales, the great era of Welsh rugby, who are the best players, or probably Wales might, because it's a tradition in rugby Australia. Half the people would know who we are.
Yeah.
We've lost our tradition because the younger generation want to move on. It's all about them. And sometimes you've got to look at history to understand why we are being so successful.
Yeah.
But the younger kids just don't sort of respect that, and I think sometimes that's a shame because that's part of the tradition of being a Wallaby. It's like being a Welshman, or an English, or all countries. It's because of what's happened before we were born or we arrived. So.
Yeah. And well, that's one of the first things I was brought up on was the crowning years. The Welsh team of the '70s. The Triple Crowns, and seeing the Barry Johns, the Gareth Edwards. Those sort of players, and that's all. They're my heroes. Do you know what I mean? And it's sad that people don't remember those. And I remember walking past Tommy David in my local Tesco, and like literally just walked past, and nobody like sort of batted an eyelid. And I was like, "That's Tommy David." Do you know what I mean? And it might happen in 40 or 50 years' time when Shane Williams walks into a local Morrison. Nobody knows where he is. It's quite sad, really, isn't it? But in that semi-final against New Zealand, you decided not to face the hacker. What was the thought process behind that? Did you just not want to get it in the head? Or?
Well, yeah, it wasn't a big thing back then. It wasn't about what we had to do. There was no such thing that, guys, we want you to do that. Just said, look, I just went out there and said, I just want to kick the ball around. It's pretty cold. So if we lost, that would have been a bit of problems. But luckily we won. So it's sort of, people just didn't say a lot. But look, I think it's a great thing for the game. I think if people want to see it, let them do the hark, and if you want to sing something after that, let them sing, but don't sing it while they're doing it. They want it done, but then they don't want it done. So make up their mind what the best is.
And I bet you enjoyed that final.
Yeah, look, it was it was quite interesting because
side, anyway.
Yeah, no, but it's quite interesting because you look back now and you go, what it was all about was about mental toughness. It wasn't about fitness or skill. It was about which team could last the 80 minutes. England were trying things that they've never done before, and they were actually bloody very dangerous. We were just so mentally tired that we were just lucky to defend. We're just lucky that England really didn't have the skill factor to continue on, where we just did things sometimes, just it wasn't working, guys. Let's just get down there and get them to make a mistake, So, look, it works, but obviously to beat England at Twickenham, there's no greater joy. I think the Scottish and the Welsh there that day were supporting the Wallabies as well, so that does help,
Just like in 2015, I had my gold Aussie jersey on when they beat them at Twickenham. But
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how the English are like that.
yeah. But I think I read somewhere in Brian Moore's book that after that tournament, I think England won the joint BBC Team of the Year,
Yeah.
and the BBC asked you to present the trophy to them. What's that about?
I rocked up. They asked me to come and present the award because England won the Team of the Year. And I mean, really? You win the Team of the Year and you lose the Grand Final World Cup and you get the Team of the Year. Okay, that's a good one. So anyway, I came from Italy and I had a pair of jeans, a jacket, and a white singlet, a t-shirt, no collar, just. So when I walked on, like Clive was not impressed. I don't think it was Clive back then, actually. No, it wasn't. It was who was the coach back then? I can't remember. But yeah, no, they weren't impressed. But then I got to 2003, I was back invited again to present England with win the World Cup. So it's bizarre. Yeah, only the English can do things like that.
Yeah, I think Brian Moore was going to sort of say a few words, but he said I can't say words to him after that. But talking of hookers, I spoke to Sean Fitzpatrick a few weeks back, and he was telling me about the greatest Bledisloe series that he was a part of, and it was actually one that he'd lost in 1992. Do you remember that?
Yeah, centenary it was 100 years of rugby. Yeah, for the All Blacks. Yeah.
What were your memories of that series? Because it was really tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, we won.
Yeah,
that's really good.
One of his favourites.
I think it was. I think the three tests were separated by 3 points.
Yeah,
it wasn't a lot, hey?
Yeah,
but it was. I mean, that's what rugby. That's what it should be like, you know. And both teams had some great players as well. And obviously, being the world champions made it even harder for us because once you got a tag after, people just want to beat you. So look, we had some great battles over the years, and I think that was probably one of the best series you could get. I think there was a tour in '88 as well that was quite interesting, where the All Blacks decided to play a club team called Randwick, who we played for, and there was a Coogee Oval where the Ellas played, Point of, and a lot of it Wallabies. Anyway, so after that game, the All Blacks vowed never ever to play a club team again because that game was harder than the Test matches.
Was it?
So, it was a midweek game, and they picked their best team because Randwick we had Lloyd Walker at 10, we had Gary L at 13, David Knox at fullback. I was on one wing. We had Poitevin. We had the front row was Mackenzie Daly, Mick Murray. And we had Michael Checker play as well, Brad Burke who played. So we had a lot of Test players. So they took it very seriously. Yeah. So after that, they just said never again.
That doesn't sound like New Zealand.
Well, I think that especially when they lost to Munster, didn't they? The All Blacks back in the day. So look, look, that's what rugby's about. You've got to put your best team out, and it's a shame that we've lost those long tours. I think those long tours have been great. I think we've got to bring them back because the young guys these days get a chance to play Test match in a World Cup. You're exposed to one of the biggest tournaments in the world, and you might have 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Those tours, you go and play Llanelli 1 week, and then you go and play. You've got Ospreys, you've got all the teams now. But back in the old days, it was Pontypool. All those teams, and every game was a tough game in the mud. And that's how you learn your rugby knowledge and skill, and that's how you learn to play in different conditions. Now, every oval's perfect.
Yeah.
They've got undercover stadiums, they can't complain, and so I think we've lost a lot of that. I think those tours would be great to bring back in, and I think the spectators would see the younger generation, and they could say, "Well, we'll have to watch this guy because this guy's good." That's how you learn.
And going into the '95 World Cup, do you feel the Australian side was sort of similar to the All Blacks of '91, sort of maybe going over the hill?
Yeah, we were. We had so many injuries. We probably lost that hunger. When you haven't got something, you're after it. When you've got it, you don't try as hard.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of problems off the field. There were certain things that happened that weren't great and sort of distracted. a lot of things, and it just didn't. It wasn't the same thing,
At that World Cup in '95, the world was introduced to the late great Jonah Lomu, and I
Yep.
believe you played one of your final games of professional rugby against him.
Yeah, look, I played against Jonah many times, and I actually got him in '95. I had a tribute game, and I got him to play with me. So yeah, look, I played against him in sevens. I played against him in Uruguay in the sevens, South American Barbarians, Hong Kong. He was a great player, good friend as well.
Yeah. And do you feel yours and Jonah's style of play would suit today's game?
Well, Jonah's probably still would because of the size. You look at most of the wingers that try and run over people instead of around them. So yeah, look, I think Jonah changed the game, and the little guys still have to fight it out. And as I said, it's still good that a lot of young guys, small guys, are still around and got the speed and the skill. Because if you've got that knack, mate, you can still make it.
And of course, your final game, your final Test match, was in Cardiff. Was in '96. Was that a sad day for you?
Yeah, it was. But what happened was we had a new coach, and that tour was very tough. I played my 100th against Italy. Then he dropped me for 2 tests, and then I came back. I think I played well against Munster, and then I got picked again for my last test. But what I was really looking forward to, the week after we played the Barbarians, and the Barbarians wanted me to play for them against Australia.
Yeah.
And I said yes, but the Australian coach said no. So I wasn't impressed.
Well, we would talk about. Obviously, my research was wrong that you went on the English bus, but I did see a photo of you after the 2003 World Cup with a sign on. You had to walk around London with a sign saying England.
Yeah, 2003.
With a better side. What was that about?
There was Sky TV. I was doing work for him in Australia, and I was working with Gabby Logan, who was the Logan's wife who played for Scotland. And we were up watching England versus Tonga, I think it was. And before she said, "Oh, by the way," she said, there was a poll in England by Ladbrokes, and they said what would you most like to see? And they said, well, if England win the World Cup, I want to see David Campese wear a sandwich board down Oxford Street. It was not a few toots to the horns. It was good in the middle of the day because no one was there really. But I said, I admit the best team won, but on the back I said, we'll get you next time. So yeah, it was good. Part of fun. You got to bite.
And of course, England were in another World Cup final last year. But of course, I think you said that you knew England were going to lose in the final when you saw John Mitchell and Eddie Jones at the Wales-South Africa game smiling. Yeah,
well, I was at the game the week before on the Sunday, watching South Africa and Wales. And at halftime, John Mitchell, who I've known many, many years, played against John, and he lived in South Africa, and I was there on TV with him in South Africa. So I got to know him pretty well. And Eddie Jones, obviously, I played with Randwick with Eddie, and then he's travelled around the world. So at halftime, they come in, they're both smiling, and I'm just sitting there going, hey, here we go. So they thought they'd won it.
Yeah.
They actually thought they won it. And then you see after the tournament, John Mitchell came out and said, I said to Eddie, there's something wrong. We've got to be switched on. And we're right. And so it was quite interesting how that panned out. But your best game's not your last game. You've got to have a good game somewhere, but you've got to realise there's still one game to go. And last week's not going to help you next week. Yeah. And I think France are the architects of that, aren't they? Well, they are, but also South Africa were very smart. They had a great scrum. And Ross Erasmus, who's very, very competent coach, and he knew what he wanted, he knew how he got it, and he got to the players. And they just, as soon as England lost their prop, it was over. Yeah. Coles had played 20 minutes most tests, and all of a sudden now he's got to play 60 minutes in the final. Yeah, he couldn't offer anything to the team. Yeah, but again, it was the tactics as well. The tactics were so simple. They had a good defensive team, can lock you down, and that's what happened. And the enthusiasm wasn't there that was against the All Blacks.
Mm.
They had to. They realised they had to beat the All Blacks, and they played very well, but they couldn't produce that again.
Mm. Well, what do you think it's going to take for Australia to make another World Cup final?
Look, I just think we've got to get our structure. We just got to get Australian coaches in. We've got to get people who understand Australian style. We are different. We've always been different. We're not, we haven't got huge guys. We've got guys who are very skillful, very adventurous. And I just think we need to get the grassroots to find out a bit about our history, where we come from, our culture. And, the guys want to be a Wallaby because we've got rugby league, we've got Aussie rules, we've got football out here as well. So it's very, very competitive for all the young kids. So we've really got to try and play a style of rugby that these kids want to play. And that's what I was fortunate to play in. That style of rugby was unbelievable. And kids wanted to be a Wallaby. Now they don't. So we've got to try and sort our problems out and play, as I said, if you play something that people want to watch, they will come and watch. If you don't entertain people, especially in Australia, you can turn it off and watch something else.
Yeah. And are you excited by the brand of rugby that Dave Rennie's going to hopefully bring to Australia rugby?
Well, I've known Dave for 20 years. The first time I saw him at one of those I-range rugby courses, and he did okay with the Chiefs. Then he went overseas. I don't know what it was like in Glasgow. He's coming to Australia. It's difficult because he's got a lot of young guys as well. We've got 4 different coaches in Australia. We've got 2 Kiwis, a South African and an Australian, playing different styles of rugby. It doesn't seem to work. You need to have everyone on the same boat. And when Australia was at their best, you had New South Wales, Queensland, all the players playing in 2 teams. Combinations worked. Then the Brumbies came along, but again, the style of rugby was sort of the same, played right through round. And I think that's what we need to do. Everyone's got to play. So if one player drops out, you can stick someone in just as good, like the All Blacks do week in, week out. So what the All Blacks are playing now is how we used to play, and we're playing like the All Blacks used to play.
And is there any future for you in coaching? Because obviously you helped coach the Sharks in 2005, didn't you?
Yeah. Look, trying very hard. It's very, very frustrating, but who knows what's going to happen in the world. But look, I've been coaching around Australia for the last, this is almost 3 years now, coaching kids and coaches and trying to spread the way of playing, trying to tell people not to do the spiral pass and all that, trying to bring back the torpedo kick.
Yeah.
Just some of the simple things in game which makes the game more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And before you go, David, is it all right we finish with a quick fire round?
Yeah, go for it.
Brilliant. Right. So firstly, who's the best player you played with?
Mark Ella.
Best player you played against?
2 players, Serge Blanco or Jean-Baptiste Lafont.
The best match you've been involved in?
Best match been involved in would have been probably 88 Barbarians.
Worst drinker you played with?
Worst drinker?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Tony Daly.
Biggest troublemaker on and off the field?
Jonathan Davis.
You have to say that. We've forbidden him doing this. Best coach you played under?
Best coach, there's been a few. Every coach is different. Alan Jones, Bob Dwyer, and Jeff Sale from Club Rugby, and a guy called Vittorio Monari from Italy.
And finally, if you weren't a rugby player, what would you be?
What would I be? I wouldn't be a singer or entertainer. Can't sing, can't dance. I actually don't know. A winemaker.
A winemaker.
My wife said a winemaker. Because I'm good at drinking at the moment.
In we all. Well, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Also, mate, just quickly, if you can just let everyone know that I'm taking a Lions tour to South Africa next year.
Yeah.
If you go on davidcampese.com or Instagram or things like that, you'll find the tour there. It's for the second, third test, private box, the 2 games, private game drives, dehorning of a rhino, and a Dakar car rally day.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks a lot for that, David. Have a good night's sleep now, because I kept you up too long. But
that's fine. But just tell Jiffy it's great to see that he's doing all those charity things too.
Yeah.
I've never seen him so fit.
Will do. Thanks, Dave.
See you, mate. Bye.
Thanks a lot, buddy.